I thought I was missing, I got exceedingly above, even beyond what I thought I was missing out on. Things just took off in our love. And again, the way he loves me, I said, oh my gosh, I never knew that I could be loved like this. I never knew that there could be such a peace and such a kindness, because I always was conditioned to believe that, like Jody, that I had to be this loyal down girl for her guy, even though he's a bad boy. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, he's doing that. And I thought I had to be down. I thought love had to hurt in order for it to mean something. And when I encountered Matthew, I found the opposite, to the point where he stayed in my friend zone because, yeah, he was nice. He wasn't even nice. He was kind. You know, he would do things he would go out of his way to do things that for me, but I didn't have the eyes to actually even realize what was going on. I knew.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book 91. Listen, part 3 of the series, and we're talking about it from a fearful, avoidant perspective. This young lady just told us that she friend-zoned her husband for 18 years because he was nice. The first word was correct, because he was nice. Because from her perspective, she could not tell what was good for her. It took her 18 years to realize what good actually was. Let me take that a little bit back, because it wasn't 18, maybe like 16, because she actually dated someone at the end who she got engaged to was much better. But it took her 18 years to get him out of the friend zone, because her lens of looking at love was that it has to hurt. That's toxicity and the chaos that a lot of people exist in. And we're going to talk about it from an attachment perspective, because I believe this is a key word. The phrase she used, love has to hurt, is fearful avoidance. Now, she mentioned about Jody, what was it? Jody Baby. I don't even know that film very well. So listen, Baby Boy film. But she mentioned about the love and the hurt, right? And that association is prime time golden bars by a fearful avoidant, where they begin to attach that any kind of emotional bond with somebody has to hurt in order for it to mean something, as she said herself. And that is, I must be stretched, I must be broken, I must be hurt by it, I must be striving for it, it must be difficult. There must be some level of stress associated with the relationship. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Hence why she could not date this man for 18 years. That's also included the fact that he was a Muslim at the time and he wasn't with the Lord yet. But they were not prepared, right? And so this equating love of emotional or physical suffering is classic lines from a fearful avoidant. If you don't know what that is, a fearful avoidant simply is one of the 4 categories that was mentioned by John Bowlby, who is a British psychologist, by the way, and who developed these I call this boxes for young children who he watched them interact with their caregivers and see how they dealt with separation anxiety. So in a sense, what the fearful avoidant is known for is when it comes to anxiety and relationship attachment, how they form emotional bonds, for them, it is anxious. At the same time, they want to avoid. So they both feel a level of anxiety when they see separation anxiety, but they also at the same time want to avoid that pain and that feeling. So what we call them is hot and cold. They are people who are runners and track stars. They're saboteurs of relationships. When it gets warm, when it gets heated, when the relationship seems more loving, when the person's more secure and calm and caring about them, they want to run, because the chaos that they're used to is familiar to them. And your level of calmness or your level of caring or love or appreciation, that's not how love is supposed to be. It's too easy. It's a bit like the gospel. For a lot of people, Christianity needs to be chaotic. It needs to be, oh, we need to strive hard. And it's like, nah, the gospel is like, just believe in Jesus Christ and he does the work in you. Allow him to do the work in you. That's literally it. The gospel is simply this. It is one of grace, not of works. And a lot of people believe that relationships are of works. And so the fearful avoidant is consistently trying to work. But we're going to break this video all the way down, because for 18 years, a brother was in the friend zone. For 18 years. But this story is interesting because, let me tell you why. I'm going to give you 9 points really quickly, and then we're going to break it all the way down. The 9 points are this. 1, love associated with pain is incorrect, but that's how a fearful avoidant thinks. Lack of boundaries and risky attachments is something that fearful avoidants tend to exhibit. Number 3 is that growing up in households where it may be sheltered, but they minimize a conversation or minimize the way that they deal with situations by taking away the emotions out of a situation. So she might have said sheltered, but really she was restricted. She was not allowed to do much stuff, right? And that causes rebellion later on, or causes fear of breaking any rules that makes people very timid. Number 4 is poor boundaries with the opposite sex, right? Okay. Number 5 is stringing people along whilst choosing chaos. Okay. Number 6 is self-sabotage and indecisiveness because they do not trust their own voice and trust that they can make a right decision. Number 7 is keeping orbiters and emotionally triangulating in their relationships. In order to keep control and in order to keep safe, a fearful avoidance can be people who keep orbiters. Orbiters are people who they like or they like them and keep them in a circumference close by so that they don't go too far away. Okay, all right, and they emotionally triangulate them because they're keeping an emotional connection with that person while still having another relationship in tow. Number 8 is that they believe they're too damaged for love, right? Which is that they don't feel like they're good enough for it. Their self-worth and self-esteem. And number 9 is that the fear of missing out and distrusting their own voice, as I said a little bit earlier on. Okay, and that's because they're overthinking, they're second guessing, and they're constantly wondering, what if? What if? What if? What if? And their doubt comes from the fact that they were never able to trust their own voice. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go deeper into this aspect, right? We're gonna go deeper into it. We're gonna break it all the way down. So if you're with me, listen, just make sure you like, share, subscribe. You click on that bell button for notifications of the uploads. We appreciate you. Stay locked and stay loaded. Let's go to point number 1, which I spoke about in the actual video part 2. I broke it down. Let's talk about that in aspect because I want to go there first and foremost, right? Love is pain. We're going to replay the clip. I'm going to quickly break it down because I already explained this in part 1, so I don't want to go over it and belligerent the point, but I do want to be able to go over that point again.
I had to be this loyal down girl for her guy, even though he's a bad boy. I'm doing this, he's doing that. And I thought I had to be down. I thought love had to hurt in order for it to mean something. And when
I'm going to stay there because the fact that she says love needs to hurt before it means something tells you whatever she's experienced in the past is a contributing factor to her believing that that is what love is. Because if you have seen love in a more appreciative way, there's no way you want to associate love with being painful. It means that's what you experienced as a child. Love was painful, right? And that's why I said about the point later on when we said about she said she's sheltered. I said, is she really sheltered? Because is it the fact that you were sheltered or is it that you were restricted? The wording is important because shelter sounds like, oh, okay, you weren't necessarily like in a place where you see crazy stuff. No. You were sheltered in terms of you were restricted. You were forcibly not allowed to do certain things, right? But love being associated with pain is that fearful avoidance crave intimacy, but simultaneously they fear it. Okay, emotional closeness can feel threatening because it activates wounds from the past. What are those wounds? That I'm not good enough, that I'll eventually be left, they will abandon me, they'll betray me, or they'll reject me. What you must understand is that fearful avoidance carries these 3 things. They fear abandonment, rejection, and betrayal. And in amongst that, underneath that, they feel like that love will hurt. Love is painful, and that they will either hurt someone or they'll be hurt. So they try to keep people away if they feel like they're going to hurt them, and they push people away when they feel like they're going to be hurt by the other person. So it can even be a good relationship, but they'll still feel like, when is the penny going to drop? Because my parents, when they dealt with me, they loved me at one point, but then they would get angry at another point. They loved me at one point, then they'll be frustrated at me. And the irregularity and the unpredictability of that parent, and when I'm saying about not being happy about them, that's a nice word. I'm talking about, being shouted at, screamed at, basically verbal and emotional abuse in some shape or form, right? And so the child learns that actually the penny will drop. So today they're being nice, but the penny will drop eventually. And when it eventually does drop, they're gonna be like, see, I told you. It's gonna confirm their bias, right? So a lot of times they try to get out before it gets too deep. This is really important. Okay. All right. As a result, they pull away and sabotage a relationship. So if you're dealing with somebody who is a fearful avoidant, that's one of the reasons why they're pulling away. Okay. All right. So let's go to number 2, right? A lack of early boundaries, because we have to deal this, right? Now, she said she had a boyfriend. I want to go way earlier. Okay. I'm going to go way earlier because she said she had a boyfriend. But when she meets her husband, she has a boyfriend too. Listen to this.
We met in LA. I was at Jerry's Deli. It's a restaurant. It's no longer there. It's right across from Beverly Center. And I was out with my friends, and I immediately saw Erica, and I beeline straight to her. Like, it was like, I wouldn't say love at first sight, but she was just absolutely stunning. And I just went straight to her. I started talking to her. And
Hold on, how you calling them out?
Because she gave me her mom's number.
I was so nervous. I was so nervous.
Why you give me your mama number?
It was so, all I saw, I was talking to my friend, And all of a sudden I saw these eyes. I mean, Maddie has very pronounced eyes. If you can imagine, I'm looking at my friend and all I see are these eyes staring straight at me. And I said, oh my God. I said, Nelly, this guy is looking straight at me. He's coming over here. And by the time she said what, I said, never mind, girl, he's already here. And he was right there. He was just looking at me. And I was thinking, oh my goodness. And at the time, I had a boyfriend, but I had friends. And so, but I was so nervous with.
So she had a boyfriend and she still gave the number out, which is her mom's number. And by the way, she's gonna tell you the story after. She's about to give another number out. It's actually gonna be the number, her real number later on. So she gave her mom's number. Someone might say, okay, maybe she was a bit scared. That's why she gave her mom's number, right?
It was out past curfew.
She didn't know before. She know now. Mama, you know now. She lied to you.
But that's it. So I was thinking like, oh my God. I was like, that's what I did. I was like, that's why I had that feeling of like something's right, but it's wrong at the same time.
You got yourself in trouble.
Yeah, I got myself in trouble. So it almost didn't happen. But luckily, his friend was on the phone with my friend. And I said, oh my gosh, tell him to throw that number away. Give him my cell phone number. Tell him to call me. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this.
Now she says, throw away everything. Give him my actual number. Wait, you've got a boyfriend. Why are you giving him your actual number? Right? This is what we're talking about in terms of when it comes to boundaries, right? With the opposite sex, or a lack of early boundaries, we can say, right? And wanting to have risky attachments with people, okay? So I'm kind of combining the 3 or 4 points because I want to say about opposite sex friends. But she obviously says, that, that she gave the number over, right? Because she was, he seems cool, right? But he did not approach as a friend. And in fact, this story gets wilder because actually he comes to visit her on a Thanksgiving. Right? Let me play a little clip for
so kind.
At the Thanksgiving dinner.
My family didn't really like him. So he wasn't really invited at the time. He wasn't really welcome at the house. Yeah. So my family was not really they weren't really feeling him. So
so she's like, well, Matthew comes.
Yeah, I was like, Matthew's cool. I got my best friend at the time was gonna be there. My favorite cousins were gonna be there. So I was thinking like, oh, we'll just have like a good time. Because he always had this like, we would stay on the phone for hours, but he just always had a kindness about him.
Now, why are you on the phone for hours when you've got a boyfriend, man, dear? Right? Now, someone might chalk it up to me, oh, they're young, you're stupid. No. There were 17-year-olds who were faithful and loyal. Please let's not do that. Like, there's a trauma response here because she's playing on the line. She had a boyfriend at the time, whether he was a drug lord or not. We're going to get to that because the boyfriend was a drug lord, right? But she was playing at the time, right? Because what she was seeking for was an emotional connection. So she kept this man in orbit as an emotional connection. So she might have not done anything physically, but she was emotionally cheating. Let's just call it what it is, right? Because you're on the phone for a couple of hours and calling it a friend and then inviting that person also to the fact that they're to your Thanksgiving, knowing that he approached you not as a friend. And then you gave him your mom's number, but then gave him your real number to call. Yeah, we ain't going to pretend about that, right? Now, why am I saying that? It's not to get angry. It's actually to get you to a point to understand something about the fearful avoidant. What tends to happen is this, right? They can end up, okay, all right, having very bad boundaries. They can maintain emotionally intimate friendships with romantic potentials while being in a relationship, right? Giving her mom's number at first, but then giving that number later on, okay, all right? The lack of emotional boundaries and is due to the fact that for them, they've not been able to develop good boundaries, right? So for them, it's about not being abandoned. Because, okay, this guy likes me. So what if in the future, he's the one for me? Okay, let's not let him go. Because for the fearful avoidant, it's always about what if? What if? And so they rationalize their behavior that they're doing, which is emotionally cheating, by actually labeling it as a friendship. It's not a friendship because the person likes you and is trying to make moves on you. Now, of course, they're not telling us the full story because unless he's very passive, there ain't no way that you were just saying things and not saying anything. You know what I'm saying to you? Right? And so that aspect now shows us again another aspect of emotional safety, right? That you're not safe enough to say no. And actually, it's not for now. I'll do this later on. But the incessant desire of the fearful avoidant, because again, they're thinking, what if? They got to make sure that they've got a safe landing. Because if I lose this relationship with my boyfriend now, I've got this man here just in case. I've got a soft landing just in case. I've got to make sure that there's a soft landing. Now, it's manipulative. But just call it what it is. Like, as much as we're trying to explain the trauma of what's happening, I want to keep it clear. If this was a man, we'd all call it manipulative. I don't want to soften it because it's a woman doing it. It's manipulative. And it's from trauma. And if you don't sort it out, you end up keeping doing this, right? It's not a young mentality. Please don't think it's, because they were young. It's not because they're young. This is something that happened happens to a lot of people when they're even older. When we're emotionally stunted, it's not because we're young, we're emotionally stunted. We've not been able to mature emotionally. Therefore, those boundaries also don't allow us to, the boundaries that we don't develop as a youngster don't formulate in our adult relationships either. Okay?
It's like, we would stay on the phone for hours, but he just always had a kindness about him that I really, really appreciated. And I was like, okay, just, come, stop by. Plus he was going to Carson to go see his girlfriend anyway.
I was about to ask you, did you have your girlfriend?
Yeah, so the girl
Now, would his girlfriend appreciate the fact that you invited him to Thanksgiving dinner knowing that he likes you? He got bad boundaries too. Let's call it what it is. He got bad boundaries too. And that's how they meet. Bad boundaries meet bad boundaries, baby. Okay, all right? That's how we get into stupidity. But it's okay. We were young, but still at the same time, that's how bad boundaries meets bad boundaries, because he had a girlfriend at the time, right? Now, he says obviously they were just talking, wasn't a girlfriend, whatever you want to call it. I guess the reason why she's also saying it that way is because if she says, oh, he had a girlfriend, that's why nothing could have happened. That is not the reason. That's not an excuse, right? That's actually not a good reason. Oh, because sometimes people avoidance do that again to kind of, again, minimize what's actually happening. Oh, no, he had a girlfriend at the time, so it didn't mean anything. It can't mean anything. No, he can't do anything because of a girlfriend. That delulu, you need to come out of it. Okay, all right? People do what they want to do, regardless of whether they had a girlfriend or not, right? It's your boundaries. And because the fifth avoidant is afraid that love is pain, they also are afraid of being harmed. A lot of times they can't say the real truth about something because they're afraid of being harmed. But what they've learned, and this is key, what they've learned to avoid that is to people please. So what they do is they befriend everybody around them, even if it's not to their benefit. They befriend them because then if they're friendly, they can't hurt them. Let me say that one more time again. They keep people around friendly, even if they feel like they could be harmful, especially if they can be harmful, they befriend them so that the person who befriends them won't harm them. Right? Now, if you know anything about the 5 F responses to sexual violence, right? It's flop, freeze, friend, and I can't remember the other ones. I always forget them. Fight and flight, right? So fight, flight, freeze, flop, friend. That is part of the trauma responses of not being hurt. You befriend a person so they won't harm you. So her keeping them around can be part of that trauma response. The harm of not actually having boundaries is that I people please and I keep people around me so they can't hurt me, right? Emotionally or physically. Okay, so we're gonna play more of the clip.
Girl I was talking to, I ended up going to her house, and then I just stopped by. It wasn't. I didn't stay that long, maybe like a couple hours. Yeah. And then the girl I was talking to at the time, which ultimately was my girlfriend. We were just talking at the time, but she invited me to her grandma's house, so I ended up going in there.
You were making rounds, meeting the family, picking up to go plate.
Sweet potato pie.
Yeah, sweet potato pie. And so Matt, when you were dealing with her during this season, y'all friends?
We dealing?
Okay, we're gonna say Dylan. As you were getting to know her during this season, yeah, I told you that's an inside joke what I said earlier. But I'm not gonna use Dylan. We're gonna use it. So as you were having the privilege to interact with Erica during the season of your life, was it anything romantic at that point? You got this girlfriend, you saw her, you said, she is strikingly beautiful. I want to get to know her. Mm-hmm. You approached her. That wasn't platonic. You approached her from a romantic standpoint. It transitioned to platonic really quickly. But was it always platonic in this season? We're going to talk about this season. When you go into a house to go get some sweet potato pie for Thanksgiving, was it strictly platonic?
At that time, yes. I think over the years, because
at that time, yeah, you lying to us too, because it ain't no way you approached not on a platonic level. What people call platonic, it's not platonic. What you're actually meaning to say is we restricted ourselves from doing certain things. It's not platonic. See, the platonic aspect of it is that there is none of that attraction there. That is not platonic. You have an attraction and you're refusing to acknowledge it. It wasn't platonic. I mean, give a buck. It's not platonic.
It was like years that we were talking.
We're going to stop right there. We're going to unpack all that because I want to see what transitions. Because I always tell people that I really believe in friend and fiance, and so I want to unpack how this stuff evolves and why it can evolve in a beautiful way like this, or evolve in a beautiful way like this. And so when you were looking at him during the season, it was strictly platonic.
It was.
And you this boyfriend you got, that's where your heart and mind is.
Yes, and I was like down. I was loyal.
You weren't loyal, and that's the thing about that's the thing also sometimes, and that's not just fifth avoidance. This is also avoidance in general. Dismissive avoidance do this as well, right? Is this minimalizing of their behavior? It's not actually loyal. You have somebody who actually has romantic interest in you and wanted you, and then you have said that they are your friend. From your perspective, you're like, I'm not doing anything wrong because I've told them they're my friend. But the reality of the situation is, relationships are not just built because you decided to be like, oh, you can be my boyfriend. No. Relationships are built on the emotional connection. But remember, the fearful avoidant also doesn't do well with emotional connection because they're afraid that if they have to emotionally connect, then they have to show up. If they have to show up, then it means they can be vulnerable. If they have to be vulnerable, it means you can reject them, betray them, or abandon them. And so a fearful avoidant always puts a mask on. So yes, the friendship is a mask. The friend title is a mask of not going further to a certain point because I'm afraid of what I might find in that space, right? I'm used to more chaos and more toxic because that allows me to hide in that space. But you weren't loyal. Let's just keep it a buck. You weren't loyal. Let's not lie. You know what I mean? Like, because there's nothing platonic about this relationship. There's nothing platonic about it. You know what I mean? Like, if this man had a friend who was a girl that liked him, would you be saying that's platonic? You can't say that's platonic, babe. None of us would. That'd be a boundary issue, right? Which is what it is. Okay, all right. So keep it emotionally safe, and then trying to friend zone somebody whilst pursuing chaotic or unavailable relationships. Why do I say this? Because here, let's go to this point here, right? Let's go to this point here, because when she tells us about what happened, I want to go to here because she had a boyfriend at a time, right? Before she had a boyfriend, and they were going on a few dates. Okay, they went on a few dates. But again, remember, it wasn't dates because from her perspective, they weren't dating.
Car broke down and I drove to her and she was with her friend. She was with her friend. She tells the story better, but she was with her friend and I had a rose. So a single stem rose, and I brought it to her and I took her and her friend back to the dorm. And what did your friend say?
Tiffany was like, so now that's the kind of guy you should be dating. She was like, he is fine.
You heard that from your parents? Heard that from your family? Everybody at Thanksgiving, and now your friend says this. Now, when did this happen, though? Because this is before she moved, right?
Yeah, this is before I moved. And my boyfriend and I, at the time, we had broken up because he had gone to jail. Again, I was just kind of getting tired of it.
No. Notice that she says, obviously, me and my boyfriend were broken up. Okay, fine. You and your boyfriend were broken up, yeah? All right, cool. Okay, cool.
Right? I'm thinking the first time should have been but I still was, trying to help him.
And when you called it, so Matt, you called it a date. Mm-hmm. Was it a date, or was you just going to hang out with your friend?
To me, it was a date.
And to me.
Now, listen to the boundaries here, okay? It was very important, okay? So as we are hearing, okay, it was a date for him, right? Now, why does she have to mention that she broke up her boyfriend? Because she has to state that. She has to say, because she knows exactly what she's doing. This is why the manipulation I'm saying is key. Why I say that when we talk about avoidance, dismissive or fearful avoidance, right? There's a lot of manipulation that gets wired in. I don't call it, like it's just them being a trauma. No, a lot of times, yes, it's trauma, but you're manipulative. And we have to call it what it is. Dismissives do the exact same thing. They triangulate, they orbit people. I'm one of those people, so I know. So I'm telling you from my perspective, right? There's a manipulation that exists in there. And I think we just call it as what it is. She knew exactly what it was, right? Because in that space, she had to tell us preempting, oh, no, I had broken up with my boyfriend first, because she knows that how it will look to us. But it doesn't matter because you saw him as a friend, right? Because you know you're breaking boundaries. That's at that point where you're guilty. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because the minimalization is what's also a part of a fearful avoidance perspective. They have to do that because for them, again, the connection, if they acknowledge the connection for what it really is, they have to leave the delusion of that relationship they were previously in. They have to leave that space. But I think that when she met this man here, Matthew, I think that because she always says he was so nice and so kind to me, and yet the boyfriends that she's dealing with are drug lords and abusers. Now, I think the reality of the situation is you may think your level is a drug lord or it is a level worth of an abuser. You don't honor and value yourself to that level. So in order to date someone like Matthew, and I'm not even bigging him up like that, what I'm just saying in general is, to honor to date him, she would have to up her level. She would have to stop the chaotic behavior. She would have to stop the savior complex. She would have to stop trying to save these men and building projects and actually be in a relationship where she would have to grow. She would not be the most dominant, emotionally mature individual and intelligent one no more. The power and the control would be taken from her hands and she would have to start growing. That's very difficult for the fearful avoidant because remember, just like any of the avoidance, they're emotionally stunted, right? And that would mean that she'd have to start feeling and dealing with those feelings. Okay.
It was him coming out to hang out with me because we were going to go hang out. So the fact that he brought me a long stem rose, I was like, oh, well, thank you. That's sweet.
That's unexpected.
No, but no, it was.
I remember this woman already lied about the fact that she lied to her ex-boyfriend that she was 15 when she really was 17. This girl can lie. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not even trying to even be rude about it. She can lie. You know what I mean? Now, most people, I want to be honest with you, are actually very truthful. They can be very, very truthful. They might hide the truth in terms of like not wanting to hurt your feelings, but they really are kind of truthful. They like to have the truth, oftentimes, right? But when they operate in the manipulative bag, like anybody else, they can do the same things anyone else can do. Okay, so she bugging right here. You know, she knows like what she knows. Okay, all right, she knows like what you're doing like here. All right.
That's unexpected.
No, it was really a sweet gesture. But to me, it still just matched the type of person that I knew that he was.
So you felt like he's just a nice guy.
Yeah, I was like, he's so sweet.
But you don't see him being. You didn't take that as being romantic.
No, I didn't think of him trying to like talk to me in that way because he was my friend.
And what did you at that time, Matthew? What was it?
That word "friend" again. See, because I didn't think of him that way because he was my friend, but he didn't see you as that. He did not see you as that. Let's listen.
Were you shooting your shot at the point?
Thinking back, I got to really think about that. I mean, I would say, yeah.
You ain't gonna think about it. You were.
I think I was trying to like pursue her because I did like her, and that's how.
Yeah, you liked her, so you're pursuing it. You didn't have to think about it. You were. And so he was pursuing her, right? And because and maybe he wasn't so overt about it, that's why they were able to stay friends. Because as for me, as a grown-up individual, I'm going to blow up the spot. I'm going to blow it up so that you have to think about it. One of my things that I come to is like, I will blow it up so you have to think about it. Because see, the fearful avoidant wants to avoid that aspect because then they don't have to face the reality of the truth. They can hold several things at once and be like, well, I never did anything. I was still, because they want to be able to have the aspect of, if it fails, I can go here. If that fails, I can go here. If it goes wrong, I can walk it back to here. If it doesn't work here, I can walk it back to there. They're always trying to keep this tentative type of relationship, right? And reality of the situation is, again, this goes back to the indecisiveness of the individual person, right? Like, what if this is not the right person? What if I miss out on something better? What if I ruin this by getting too close? You know, they're always fearing that something's going to happen. Like, oh, they're going to do wrong. They're going to do wrong. And that's where the self-sabotage happens. Because you even keeping two people at once is self-sabotage. You know that one person likes you, but you're trying to put them in the friend zone when they really want more, right? Can end up becoming part of the sabotage, right? And so I want to play another clip to show you about the boundaries.
I mean, gosh, from going through all the things that I had gone through, how did we get together? So I had looked for him. I remember God specifically placed Matthew in my heart, and he kept him hidden in my heart. I didn't know why, but I had a fondness for Matthew, and I would think about him from time to time. I would think, whatever happened to my friend Matthew?
My friend Matthew.
I wish she would stop with the friend stuff, but whatever happened to my friend Matthew? No, you have an emotional connection with him. You have an emotion. And again, the reason why it's important is because the fearful avoidant also doesn't recognize the emotional connection all the time, right? They don't recognize it as that. Because remember, they don't like as much as fearful avoidance love, and she says it actually later on, that she's a sapiosexual, she's an intellectual. Fearful avoidants tend to be that way, right? They love other people who are also deep thinkers. The problem is dealing with emotions. Emotions are scary for them because one, emotional language oftentimes is lacking. They don't have the language to be able to tell themselves, what is this emotion I'm feeling? Number two, they are oftentimes emotionally overwhelmed because they can't process, which is emotional regulation. They can't process how they actually feel. It's too many emotions coming at once. And because there's conflicting emotions, how do I even deal with that, right? And because there's a lack of capacity to deal with emotions because of their emotionally stuntedness in their childhood, meaning that the parent wasn't as emotionally available or present as they needed to supply their emotional needs, or they were fearful of their needs being met by the parent who was a scary figure, there is no capacity there to deal with the weight of the emotions that they're feeling. So too much overfloods them, right? Too much of it overwhelms them. Okay. All right. And the fact is, she placed him in the friend zone until she was ready to actually fully be able to see it. Now, she's going to tell us that God is the one that opened her eyes. Maybe, but I'm going to tell you that the trauma will close your eyes. I'm going to tell you the truth. The trauma will close your eyes. A lot of us, our trauma closes our eyes. I was saying this at the time, like, I remember there's a particular girl that I was speaking to a couple of years ago, and I said, and I remember I took myself out. I said, no, I can't do this. And the reason why I couldn't, because my trauma wouldn't allow me. I said, something's not quite right. She's just too stable. That's when I clocked, I'm bloody toxic, blood. How am I going to be in a place where I'm telling myself, I can't be with her because she's lacking that oomph. The oomph is the toxicity, bro. The oomph wasn't because she lacked the spark. No. The girl was attractive, beautiful. The oomph was the toxicity. And I didn't realize that until I started researching a bit more deeper. So yes, maybe you can say God opened your eyes. Maybe also at the same time, your trauma was closing your eyes. And you should have seen this years and years ago, but couldn't see it. Of course, when he got older, he had married. She had obviously got engaged. And you obviously see each other later on. That's what happens. But this is powerful.
Whatever happened to him? I remember our phone conversations. It was completely platonic. We were having fun. We were just talking. He truly was someone that I cared for genuinely. And
now they keep telling us how they used to speak on for hours and hours, and it was truly platonic. I don't know about y'all. I don't know about y'all, but I'm gonna be honest. Okay, this particularly every time it was completely platonic. Anyway,
every now and then he would pop up in my mind, or ding, and I would search him, and nothing. Okay, but I said okay, but I actually came to a point where I remember being at work and I remember Googling him one last time, and I grieved him. I said, I'm not ever going to find this person. I'm not going to find my friend Matthew. And I remember having, crying, having this emotional moment of where I was thinking it was a death of a friendship for me.
The friendship wasn't dead. What you were afraid of was that you could never reconnect with the person because there was more than a friendship going on. You see, the emotional connection and ties that you guys had built over the years, of course, they had some separation of time. You now had done what you need done, and you realized the other men were not it. Now you remember the fondness. The Lord reminded you of the fondness of the goodness of Matthew, and now you were ready for somebody who could treat you kindly. You had now exited the stage and turned left from avoiding these toxic individuals who were not for you. And what you realized was, I remember somebody who treated me with kindness and love and was actually a safe place for me. But that didn't make sense then. It now makes sense now. And that's when the healing takes place, right? We realize that, okay, I realize that actually sometimes people say, obviously, girls date the bad boys and end up dating the good guys later on because they've understood. Yeah, sometimes when you get heartbroken enough times, you realize that your choices are bad. And actually that somebody treated you kindly and was nice was the right choice. She had avoided him for time. We can call it whatever you want to call it. Call it the God factor. Say God will blind your eyes. I'm going to call it trauma. Because the reality of the situation is the trauma is what took you out of that place. And if you don't heal that trauma, it will take you out of relationships that you're meant to be in, right? So listen a bit more.
Would never have that connection with my friend Matthew again. And mind you, I had been I'm in relationships and things like that, but was still thinking in my mind, this little thing.
If you're still thinking ding, then baby, there was never a friend. No, come on, look, let's keep it what it is. If you're always thinking the ding, then you was never your friend. What the reality of the situation is, it's always going to be a what if, because every relationship you were in was not satisfying you emotionally. That's why the key indicator is that they kept on talking on the phone for hours. There was somebody who can connect with her. The problem was she's scared. The problem was that she was afraid. That type of connection that she had with that man, this one here, her husband, she never had it with any of the other men. Or maybe she didn't have it as much as the other men. Right? What she was engaging was she was always chasing them. And so now when you're always in that space of trying to heal people, collect them, chase after them, hoping that you're gonna turn them over. Somebody who wants you chases you, and it's scary because actually, why do they want me so much? Am I gonna live up to their expectations? Can I be what they want me to be? See, when they're chasing you, it's different. When they're not toxic, when they're not crazy, when they're not too, you're not too bad. It's like, oh, they're gonna see me for who I really am. In a toxic relationship, they can't see you.
Like if she changed or if things change, like I still had the desire to pursue her, but not in a romantic way. It was just like I was just trying to figure out. Yeah, I was trying to figure out myself and heal and get through that. And at the time, she was dating someone, and she was potentially going to marry this person because they.
So he's around it. So again, he's back in the business, and she's about to marry somebody, and he's in the picture again, and they're still talking. Get the frick out of here. That's what I'm talking about. The trauma. The trauma will take you to a place you don't need to be in. It will cause you to stay in relationships that you don't need to be in. That relationship she was going to go into was not the right kind of relationship. But again, instead of her facing her fears, I'm not putting it all on her, by the way. He should have been more aggressive. More assertive, right, about the situation. But we're dealing with the fifth of the They
were like considering. I remember the phone call right after that was like maybe like a week later. She was like, "Hey, I'm getting married."
Yeah, I got proposed
so
to.
I was like,
yeah.
So at that point, I was like, "Oh, okay, hands. I'm gonna call it her, because I'm not a homewrecker and I'm not gonna disrupt whatever. And I'm happy for her, and I wish her well."
And I think the phone conversation that we had was, "Hey, I I prayed with him. I said, you have, for the sake of your daughter, I pray that, God is able to heal your marriage. And I encouraged
you want
him.
him to get back with his wife?
Well, because I didn't know the extent
of,
I didn't know. I knew.
Well, yeah, she wanted
I didn't know all the
me to
details
get
of
back with her in the sense of like, she wanted me to be happy.
Yeah.
She was in a.
I was rooting for them.
Yeah.
I was like, it's hard enough. You see a lot of Black families being broken up. And that was, to be honest with you, I come from a broken home. I was thinking that beautiful little girl that I had seen. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm like, what could be happening that it could not work out? Yeah. That's again.
Right.
And so one was, being celibate. One was not shacking up before I got married. And I had only lived with, that one boy, with my daughter's father, for that bit of time. But I purposed that I was going to.
You said, she did that. She said, even call my boyfriend. Live with him, had a whole child. She said, my daughter's father.
Because this is her daddy. This is her daddy. This is her daddy. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, it ain't. But anyway, so the minimalization again, minimalizing, her daughter's father. How she puts it that way as well. At the time it was her boyfriend, but I get it. But again, obviously, she's telling a story about their changes that they've actually implemented in terms of their relationship. Right, that this when he came in the picture, her I think it's her son or daughter, her daughter as well. They've like blended their family. So she's actually going fast forward into their relationship, right? But there's another, the aspect I was pointing out to was even Latira's pointing it out, which was the minimalization again of that relationship, of the past relationship. So when she's got into a new one, she minimalizes the past one. Because because sometimes there's a fear of talking about the actual relationship because
he's still my friend Matthew. I care for you. I'll pray for you. I love you from a distance, but there's no way that I'm going to put myself, because I'm trying to learn how to trust myself, make better decisions. And so there was a lot of, I was armed with.
So you ended it with your fiance. Yeah. Now you're single.
Mm-hmm.
He's single.
I'm dating hard.
Yeah,
I'm dating like it's a job. Like I'm doing teas in the morning. I'm doing maybe a lunch, and then I'm gonna do a dinner.
So you got about 3 days in one day.
Right. So I'm making it very, very intentional about, what I want to do. I want to date to marry. I got to put myself out there. And
so since now it's 2021.
Yeah. So Matthew ends up.
So this ended 2018 with the guy.
Right.
And it's 3 years later. Mm-hmm. Matthew is still cool. You still talk to him from time to time.
Every now and then.
Oh, every now and then.
Every now and then.
Now you're out in these streets.
Yeah.
but you.
So for 3 years, even after she finished the last guy, for 3 years in between time, she spoke to Matthew time to time, but they never still again, no relationship happened. She was still. That's what I'm saying to you. Like she never. She's not. I don't want to call it just God, because sometimes we say it's like it was God. No, your toxicity was still raging, blood. Or oftentimes we don't like what we're seeing. If you're still having conversation, you have to have emotional conversation on the phone and talk for hours on end, and you can't see that person as anything else. I'm gonna tell you the truth. Listen, it's like this. I have a best friend as a girl, right? If I suddenly turn around and be like, oh my God, like, I like her, I'll tell you the truth. Listen, it's been platonic. It has always been platonic. There's never been even an ounce of nonsense, not even an ounce of that, right? But if I then turn around in the last year or so and tell you that, oh, we started flirting or whatever, which we have not, to make it very clear. But we had start, and now we're together. It's like, hold on. So what happened? Then you can say, okay, God opened my eyes. No, you guys were having emotional conversations for a very long time whilst you had partners. Boundaries were broken. He was invited, knowing that he actually wanted you from the beginning. That's an issue. That's different.
Abstinence. So you out here, right? You saying I'm gonna go so far. I'm out here dating. Nobody ain't getting the cookies, but
no kissing, no nothing.
She said no kissing, no nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
But you dating 3 people in one day.
Right.
You over here running interviews.
Yeah.
But listen, my time is up. I'm gonna leave it there. Listen, I hope you guys have enjoyed. Look, for those of you who are fearful of avoidance, maybe even an dismissive avoidant, you can tap into this as well. If you are looking to get some coaching, start your healing journey, booking a free coaching, booking a free discovery call. Let's see if we can work together first and foremost. Let me see what are your expectations, your goals. And let's see if we can align first and foremost, so I can understand where you're coming from and where you're trying to go to. I would love to be able to help you first, So look, if you're somebody who needs coaching, you're wanting coaching, you've been wanting to change your life, 2025 needs to be a different year. Yeah, reach out to me. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you again soon. Much love, much appreciation. There's a link in the description box. Click it and book yourself in.